councillors, senior staff members, to our secretary, Sophie Hawke, and to sitting in the media is Mr. Jeff Vivian, and to the people who are online, very, very warm welcome to this, our May Ordinary Council meeting. It's appropriate that I acknowledge country at this time of the meeting. So the Shire of Esperance acknowledges the Kipikul Wadjuri people of the Noongar Nation and the Ngadju people who are the traditional custodians of this land and their continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and we extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians today. So we move into our agenda, and the first item is attendance, and all the councillors and senior staff members are in attendance. We have, then we go to item 3 on the agenda, which is the apologies. No apologies from senior staff or from councillors. No other apologies to note, I take it. So we move on to item 4, which is application for leave of absence. Are there any councillors seeking to leave of absence? Councillor De Haas.
Yes, I would just like to apply for the 24th to the 26th of May inclusive and the 2nd to the 5th of June inclusive.
Thank you, Councillor De Haas. Any further? Yes, Councillor O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr President. I would like to apply for leave from the 8th of June until the 13th of June, please.
Thank you. Any other councillors seeking leave of absence? Councillor McMullen.
Yeah, it's a fair way away, but I'll get it in now. From the 18th of October through to the 3rd of November.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor McMullen. Any further leave of absence? Somebody prepared to move that the leave of absence be granted? Moved by Councillor Chambers, seconded by Councillor Oborne. I take it there's no debate. Councillors, we put to the vote. Those in favour, against, that is carried. 9 votes to 0. We move on then to announcements by the person presiding without discussion. This statement I'd like to make, councillors, to the members in the gallery. We have a limited. I see that Mrs. Miss Smith has come in from representing ABC. Welcome along to you, Emily. The statement I would like to make is that this evening, towards the end of our meeting, we do have a section where we have business behind closed doors. I'd just like to advise the general public that there are certain items that we must deal with behind closed doors. They are all items that the Local Government Act directs us to deal with behind closed doors because of a variety of reasons, but the majority of them are business. They're business tenders. There are people that do reply to our tenders and to our various applications. We are required generally to deal with these items behind closed doors because of the confidential nature of the offers, I guess, they make to council, and until a decision is made, they can't become public. But I just do that on the basis that I've heard rumours that we do things behind closed doors confidentially, and I'd say the only things we do behind closed doors that are important are the ones that we must do according to the Local Government Act. So moving on, the declarations of members' interests. Are there any members declaring a financial interest in any item on this agenda? Councillor McMullen.
Thank you, Mr President. I'd like to declare a financial interest in item 12.33, schedule fees and charges for 2023-24, as I'm a part owner of a local gym in town.
Thank you, Councillor McMullen. Any further financial interests to be declared? If not, we move on then to proximity interests. Any proximity interests that any councillor wishing to declare? Neil, thank you. Declarations of impartiality interests. Any councillor declaring impartiality interests? Mr. Walker?
I'd like to declare a partial interest in item 17.9, Light Trucks Experiment Units, it's one of the tenders, next on that.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further declarations of impartiality? Okay, if not, we now go to item 7 on the agenda, which is public question time. Are there any members of the public that would like to ask a question of council? Wouldn't appear that we have any members of the public in. And certainly the media get briefed in the media briefing tomorrow, or however they might want to ask questions of staff or councillors. So we go to public addresses and deputations. No, CEO says there's nil. So then we go to petitions. CEO says there's nil. We go to item 10 on our agenda, which is the confirmation of the minutes of our ordinary council meeting held on the 26th of April. Is someone prepared to move the confirmation? Moved by Councillor O'Donnell. Is it seconded? Seconded, Councillor Graham. Moved and seconded. Does it need any debate? I put it to the vote. Those in favour, please show. That is carried 9 votes to nil. So we go then to delegates' reports without discussion, and Sophie will bring up the those reports are on the screen. The first one is Councillor Oborne. Did you have anything to add to your list, Councillor Oborne, or any highlights you wanted to explain to councillors? Thank you. Councillor Flanagan.
Nothing further to add. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councillor O'Donnell.
Nothing further to add, thanks, Mr. President, as tabled.
Then we move to Councillor, well, next one is Councillor Graham, is it? Yes? That's all complete. Councillor De Haas.
As tabled, thank you.
Councillor McMullen.
Nil to
Oh,
report.
sorry,
Thank you.
it's Councillor Horan. My apologies.
Nothing to add. Thank you, as tabled.
Okay, and then we go to Councillor McMullen.
Nil to report, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Chambers.
No, just on the first point, attended the Borefields fire debrief. Again, I'd just like to thank the guys that were involved in the Borefields fire, both in the back burning and also in the controlling of the fire on the Wednesday. They seem to do a really good job of making sure that they do these sorts of things when I'm out of town, so that's really good. If they can continue, that'd be great. But yeah, look, in all honesty, I'd like to thank very much the effective members of the effectiveness of our emergency service guys and the guys that went out and dealt with that issue on the Wednesday and the backburns.
Thank you. I'd also like to support your statement there. I think they did a marvellous job under very, very bad conditions that day with the winds that were up, and I just compliment them on, and why I apologise to the people in leading the debrief, because that was obviously a very bad day, bad event, managed extremely well at the end of the time when with so little property being damaged. My list, councillors, is up there of the those places I've attended. And I just thank all the councillors that have represented council at those various meetings and events over the course of the past month. Thank you sincerely for your work to go out and meet with those committees and bring back information. Thank you. So we move on into the decision-making items now, councillors. We go to item 12 and the matters requiring a determination of council. And the first item is item 12.1.1, request for waiver of fees, the Esperance District Recreation Association. Are there any questions you might have for Mr. Burge on this item? Okay, no questions. Is someone prepared to move the recommendation, which is on page 12? Councillors, I will just point out, I noted that there's some differences in the paging numbering from the electronic copy to the paper copy. So if I call the wrong number, you'll know just to turn the page or one forward or one back. But I noted that has happened this month. So the first item is, as I indicated, is on page 11, the request for waivers of fees, and the recommendation is on page 12. And there's no questions to Mr. Bird, so is someone prepared to move the officer's recommendation as on page 12? All shy. Councillor Horan.
Yes, I'd like to move the officer's recommendation. The council waive the fees for the Esperance District Recreation Association for usage of the meeting room and office space at the Noel White Centre for a period of 1st of May 2023 to the 30th of April 2024, subject to the following conditions. 1. EDRA will have access to one office space. 2. EDRA will receive meeting room access for a maximum of 12 2-hour sessions during the term. And 3. EDRA affiliated members will each receive meeting room access for a maximum of 2 2-hour sessions during the term on the basis of access is non-transferable and or accruable. Thank you.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Horan. Is there a seconder to the motion? Seconded by Councillor Flanagan. Councillor Horan, you can speak to your motion.
Yeah, I'm have to say, except that they we all know Esperance District Recreation Association do a lot of good work, especially running the show and all that sort of thing. So I think whatever we can do to help them, I think it's a good way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the speaker against the motion? The seconder wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Flanagan.
Nothing further to add. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Speaker in favour of the motion? A speaker against or an amendment? I put to the vote those in favour. Against, that is carried. 9 votes to 0. Thank you. We move on now, councillors, to item 12.1.2, the local planning scheme number 24, amendments number 9, and that's on page 21 of my agenda. Is there any questions on this going to Mr. Henley? No questions, councillors? Okay, so if there's no questions, is someone prepared to move the motion as on page 22 of your agenda? They're all shy tonight. Councillor Graham.
No one wanted to read this one out, but I'll make it easy. I'll put forward the officer's recommendation. The council, in accordance with regulation 53B of the Planning and Development Local Planning Scheme Regulations 2015, support draft amendment number 9, proposed modifications to address issues raised in the submissions, numbering from 1 through to 10.
Thank you. It's moved by Councillor. It's moved by Councillor Graham. Is it seconded by Councillor O'Born? Councillor Graham, you can speak to your motion.
Look, I guess the good thing about this is that things are happening in our community, and Shire are finding a way to find ways to fit this into our scheme and in a proper method. And thank the department for bringing them forward, and thank you.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? seconder wish to speak on the motion? Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to note how important broad consultation is to achieving the best result for our community. This has changed as a result of going out to consultation. People came back with ideas about how this would affect them or impact them, and they came back with solutions. And so rather than having problems after the fact, we've consulted broadly, we've come up with really good outcomes. This is an informed decision and it's supported rather than contentious because we took the time to consult. So I just thank the staff for their good work in this and commend it to my colleagues.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Is there a speaker against the motion? Speaker in favour? Speaker against or an amendment? I put to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Thank you. That's carried 9 votes to nil. We move on now, councillors, to item 12.1.3, the cancellation of Reserve 53801 and extension of Reserve 26967. Are there any questions you might have to Mr. Henley or Mr. Burge on this item? There's no questions. I will ask if someone is prepared to move the motion, which is on page 32 of my agenda. Councillor Flanagan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the officer's recommendation that Council 1 request the Honourable Minister for Lands under Section 51 of the Land Administration Act 1997 to cancel Reserve 53801. 2. Request the Honourable Minister for Lands under Section 51 of the Land Administration Act 1997 to amend the boundaries of Reserve 26967 to cover the area formerly known as Reserve 53801. 3. Request the Honourable Minister for Lands under Section 51 of the Land Administration Act 1997 to assign the purposes of tourist purposes and accommodation that were formerly on Reserve 53801 to Reserve 26967. In addition to the existing land uses. And 4, request the CEO to include provisions with the lease being negotiated to take into account changes to the reserves 26967 and 53801.
Thank you, Councillor Flanagan. Is there a second? Speaker against the motion? No. Oh, seconder, sorry. Councillor De Haas has seconded. I saw a hand up before and didn't take note. She seconded. My apologies. So we got a seconder. Is there a or would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Flanagan?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an entirely sensible administrative process to reflect what's actually already been decided in Council on granting of a lease. It amalgamates that portion of land for the RAC to develop the smaller little triangle block, and will serve to deliver a significant economic benefit to our town in reflection of the exceptional development that the RAC undertook with the Seafront Caravan Park. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Flanagan. Is there a speaker against the motion? Seconder wish to speak to the motion, Councillor De Haas.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to add that it's also a positive step forward for the journey of the Fresh Air League, and all of these small steps bring us closer to being able to see a result that's going to be of benefit to the community.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Speaker in favour? A speaker against or an amendment? No. So I'll put to the vote. Those in favour, please show. That is carried 9 votes to nil. We move on now to page 33 of our agenda, and the item is the corporate carbon emission baseline. And any questions on this go to Mr. Walker or Mr. Burge. Any questions that you might have, councillors?
Just through the chair, I do have an update on why the waste emissions weren't taken into consideration. They weren't able to obtain them, so they were excluded from that time frame. We can obviously get them later, in a later point, and report them back in, say, the coming year as part of that emissions.
Thank you for that information, added information. Is there any other questions that councillors might wish to ask? If not, then somebody prepared to move the motion, as on page 34, 35. Councillor Horan.
Yes, I'd like to recommend the officer's recommendation that Council 1 receives the net zero emissions baseline study, executive summary. 2, receives the 2022 renewable energy project audit, executive summary. Note the estimated Shire of Esperance annual corporate emissions is 4,335 tonnes of CO2 excluding emissions from waste, and 4, requests the CEO to A, continue to monitor the Shire of Esperance annual corporate carbon emissions, and B, bring back a report to Council on the corporate carbon emissions reduction target. Thank you.
Thank you. It's moved by Councillor Horan. Is there a seconder to the motion? Amendment to the recommendation. You need a seconder before we can, okay? So is there a seconder to the motion? Everybody's shy tonight. No, you can, definitely. Because if I don't get a seconder on the next call, it'll lapse for want of a seconder. Councillor O'Donnell. It's the motion seconded by Councillor O'Donnell. Okay, so I would suggest if you wanted to make an amendment, I could, and that's what you want to do, or just want to do a correction or an addition?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah, I'll take, can you please speak?
I just felt that last week we spoke about a time that the report should come back to council to inquire on corporate carbon emissions reduction targets.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to see if we could arrive at a date or a time that we would like that report.
Okay, my advice to you then, councillor, is that if you wish that you move an amendment, and you can put an appropriate date that you consider appropriate, and I'll take that as an amendment without any debate on the motion.
Okay.
Okay, so do you wish to that motion and report, bring a report back to council on corporate carbon emission reductions target by 12 months' time, 2 years' time, whatever date you want.
3 months' time? 2 months' time? Whatever is appropriate. September?
September 2023.
September 2023.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Walker.
that's the amendment, amended motion. Oh, yeah. So, September Ordinary Council meeting 2023, and that's before this one wouldn't come into caretaker anyway, it's only reporting back. So it's not one that we have to be wary of for the caretaker period. Okay, are you happy with that, Councillor O'Donnell, as the amendment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President.
It's moved by Councillor O'Donnell. Is there seconded to the motion, to the amendment, sorry? Councillor Flanagan, seconds. Councillor O'Donnell, you can speak to the motion.
To the
amendment,
motion.
sorry, the amendment is what we're going to refer to.
Yes, I think it makes sense that we put a date on this report so the officers have a direction and so they can bring that report back to council, please. And I hope that everybody, is in favour of that.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. Is there a speaker against the motion, the amendment?
Question?
Yeah.
Just a question. Would it be sensible to leave it till October, so that's presented to the new council. Just a thought that presenting it to the old council might not have any sense, just to.
Well, yeah, you're welcome to speak against it, Councillor Graham, if you wish. Yeah. At the appropriate time. A speaker against the amendment?
Okay, no, well, I just, speaking on that motion is I just, bringing it to the council for the September meeting would mean that it wouldn't be of not much purpose to maybe some new councillors that will be around the table, and maybe that report would be useful at the start of the new council year.
Okay, so that's a speaker against the amendment. Is there a speaker in favour of the amendment? I didn't give Councillor O'Donnell spoke. Is there a speaker again in favour of the amendment as it stands? Speaker against the amendment? Only been one speaker against. I'll give you a right of reply. Councillor O'Donnell.
Well, now that Councillor Graham has brought forward that idea, well, it does make more sense. So, you know, like, how can I speak to a motion when I'm agreeing with Councillor Graham's explanation?
Point.
Yeah.
We're voting on the amendment.
Yeah, so let's.
Once we pass the amendment, it becomes the substantive motion.
Right.
Yes.
Once it becomes the substantive motion, then you can actually do an amendment to the substantive motion.
Well, so you had a right of reply, so you just you waive your
I
right of
waived it.
reply. Thank you. So we're testing the amendment now, which is the September has been added. September. I take it the principle of the motion has been supported, but there was addition of that date of September 2023. That is what you'll be voting on. Could I say to you, Councillor Chambers has spelled it out for me, that if this if this amendment is lost, we go back to the substantive motion, and we can, whoever reads that could read into it a different date, if you wish, Councillor Graham, I guess. I'm looking towards you on that. Okay, so I put it to the vote. Those in favour of the amendment, please show. Against? Oh no, sorry. Yeah. No, it won't. It won't. You wait and see. It'll come out. So the amendment is lost. We refer back to the original motion, which is that it had no date on it, and that's the one that if someone wishes to speak and to add a date to that, that's where we would deal with that as the substantive motion. Okay? So, Councillor Graham, do you have a substantive motion to put forward with another date on it?
Yeah, council. Second this, councillor.
I will.
Yeah, I'd like to put an amendment to the officer's recommendation to have this come back to the October meeting, so that the new council can have this as new information at the start of the new council period. Thank you.
So the technicality would have been you would have moved the motion with the date changed. You don't have to speak to it at this stage.
Through the chair, sorry, is it better that it's probably pushed back another month further, because the new council coming in will only have like 1 or 2 weeks to consider all this new information?
Do you wish to change the date, Councillor Graham?
I'm happy to put it out to October 23 or 4, I mean, if that's the case. No, I'm happy to do that. I think that makes sense, that it gives them a chance to absorb that in their new year. But that I'm happy to put it out to November by the new That's fine. Thank you.
Right, that's moved by that motion's moved by Councillor Graham. Is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor O'Donnell. Okay, Councillor Graham, do you wish to speak? Motion.
No, fairly self-explanatory.
The Speaker against? Speaker in favour? Councillors, I'd like to speak about the context of the whole of the motion. I mean, these estimates of our annual corporate carbon emissions is our starting point. We know how we are in this program within the GROC, and we have a program where we are looking at local governments in the Coalfields Esperance region are looking at their carbon emissions. Obviously, it's a starting point where we start off to try and reduce these numbers, and that's the aim in to meet a decision by 2030 or 2040 or 2050. That's probably where we're going with this. So I don't think it matters when people pick it up and start talking about it. We've got a figure that's been calculated to now. It does not have our carbon, our waste results on it at this stage tonight, but we certainly know once we get those figures that will be added to it, and that'll be our finalisation for our opening carbon emissions for the Shire of Esperance. Speaker against the motion? Speaker against the motion or an amendment? Put it to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against, it's carried 9 votes to 0. We got there in the end. I told you it would.
That was approved, the amendment. That becomes a substantive motion. Now you vote on the motion.
All right. Okay. Thank you for that. So I put it to the vote again as a substantive motion. Please show. Against. That is carried 9 votes to 0. Took us a while, but we got there. Okay, councillors, so we go now to our street tree policy, which is item 12.2.2 on page 34 of our agenda. Oh, sorry, it's not page 34, it must be page 61, isn't it? 61 of our agenda, and 60 is it? That's why I'm different to everybody else tonight on numbers. Page 60. Are there any questions you might have about the street tree policy to Mr. Walker or Mr. Burge? No questions? Well, councillors, we've got a recommendation for you on page 62 or perhaps 63, I'm not sure. Councillor Oborne.
I would like to move the alternative recommendation, please, that council may wish to consider getting formal public comment on the proposed new street tree strategy, and so that council requests the CEO to seek public feedback on the draft Shire of Esperance Street Tree Strategy 2023 for a period of 21 days, and 2, provide a report back to council on the feedback and recommended changes.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Oborne, seconded by Councillor Chambers. So I will pass to you, Councillor Oborne, to speak to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to move the alternative recommendation, and I thank the staff for understanding that this council is big on communication. Our own implementation approach on page 92 says that we recognise that support and involvement from our community is vital to ensure that this strategy is successful. So it makes sense, therefore, to go out to consultation so that we can make sure this strategy is successful, to get feedback from people. When we've had the briefing prior, we've talked about that the goal is the preservation of street trees and guidelines and conditions for removal, that we value them, that there are some legacy issues. We need to make sure that our approach is consistent, honest and well communicated, and so I think going out to public consultation, as we did with Amendment 9, only brings back good information and brings people along on the journey with us, so we can get the best possible outcome for our community. And I thank the staff for putting that alternative motion in for us.
Thank you, councillor O'Born. Is there a speaker against the motion? Councillor Chambers, you're the seconder, you have the right to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I'd also like to agree with councillor O'Born, but there's also a second reason that I'd like to see it go back out to public, and that's for community awareness. I think it's a great opportunity to actually get it out there and get it in the realm of the community so that they are fully aware of what our strategy and what our policy is. And hopefully then, moving forward, if there's a knowledge out there in the community of what the strategy aims to achieve and what the policy aims to achieve, that compliance and understanding is greatly appreciated throughout the community.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against? Or an amendment? No speaker against, no amendment. I'll put to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against, that is carried 9 votes to nil. Thank you. Councillors, the next item is item 12.2.3, the proposed road dedication, Brazier Fuel Depot Access Road, on page 94 of my agenda. Is there any questions you might have to Mr. Walker? No questions? Someone prepared to move the recommendation as on page 95? Councillor O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to move the officer's recommendation that Council 1 support the dedication of a portion of land lot 86419 Brazier Street and lot 1523 Brazier Street, Esperance as road reserve. 2, request the Minister of Lands to dedicate the 4,495 square metres of portion of land being portions of lot 86419 Brazier Street and lot 1523 Brazier Street, Esperance as road reserve. And 3, advise the Minister of Lands that in accordance with section 56B of the Land Administration Act 1997, that Shire recognises that it is liable to indemnify the Minister against any claim for compensation in an amount equal to the amount of all costs and expenses reasonably incurred by the Minister in considering and granting the request.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor O'Donnell. Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Councillor Graham. Councillor O'Donnell, you may speak to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to support this motion because we do need this safer access for the heavy vehicle fuel trucks so they can go about their business in a safe way down through their new road. So it's just next step in this plan. And I do thank Mr. Walker and his team for conducting the community consultation with the end users in regard to this plan for this road, and I ask that my fellow councillors support this motion.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Councillor Graham, you can speak in favour of it as the seconder.
Yeah, no, I'd like to support Councillor O'Donnell move the motion. This is an opportunity to move fuel trucks off the main thoroughfare coming into Esperance, Norseman Road, Esplanade, Dempster Street intersection area where those heavy vehicles used to move through, and I think this is a much safer and better option. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Is there an amendment? No speaker against, no amendment. I'll put to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against, that is carried. 9 votes to nil. We now go to the corporate and community services agenda and the item 12.3.1, the financial services report for the month, page 99, as I understand it. I mean my agenda. Are there any questions you might have to Mrs. Baxter? All good? Someone prepared to move the officer's recommendation on the item of the financial services report? Councillor De Haas?
I'd I'd like to move the officer's recommendation that council receive the attached report entitled Monthly Financial Services Report for the month of April 2023.
Thank you, councillor De Haas. Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by councillor Oborne. You may speak to your motion, councillor De Haas.
Yes, I'd just like to say that there's so much information that is reported here, and I'd just like to say thank you to the team that do this work and make it into something that's understandable. I won't quite say enjoyable yet, but it's getting there. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Seconder, councillor Oborne.
I echo Councillor De Haas's comments and just wanted to add that the line item around the Avon Waste jogged to my memory to commend the staff on another year of our yearly verge collections. It's always well received by the community when we do the verge collection, and in particular I applaud their initiatives and the efforts that were taken to split the waste into streams so that we could avoid as much as possible from landfill. So I think we had a win-win there for people being able to get things off their property they couldn't do without us doing the birds collection, but we didn't dump it all in landfill. The Shire, made huge efforts to split that and be a great sort.
Thank you, councillor Oborne. So, is there a speaker against the motion? Amendment, I put to the vote those in favour. That is carried. 9 votes to nil. We go on now, councillors, to the annual review of the corporate plan. It's page 145 in my agenda, and is there any questions you might have to Mrs. Baxter on this item? No questions? Okay, is someone prepared to move the officer's recommendation, which is on 145? Councillor Oborne.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to move the officer's recommendation that Council 1
It's a challenge.
adopt the council plan, inclusive of amendments, deletions and inclusions as reviewed, subject to the inclusion of the financial summary information as determined by the long-term financial plan, and 2, request the Chief Executive Officer to give local public notice of the reviewed plan as per the requirements of the Local Government Act 1995.
Thank you. It's moved by councillor Oborne. Is there a seconder to the motion? Seconded by councillor De Haas. Councillor Oborne, you can speak to your motion.
Thank you. When I first got on council, this particular document was known as the Strategic Community Plan. It's now being combined with the Corporate Business Plan, but it's always been our Bible, helping us to stay on track when competing priorities arise, and it helps us to plan responsibly in line with community expectations. And I just wanted to thank the staff for the hard work that they do on these kind of documents. This one is an interesting read, informative and interesting, but I especially in particular wanted to thank Ms Walsh for her excellent work on this.
Thank you, councillor Oborne. Is there a speaker against the motion? Councillor De Haas, you can speak in favour of being the seconder.
Yes, I'd just like to agree with Councillor Oborne. This one is a really good read. It's worthwhile anyone reading it, and so much work is put into it. Thank you.
Thank you. A speaker against or an amendment? Nil. I put it to the vote those in favour. Against, that's carried 9 votes to nil. And councillors, that one required an absolute majority, and 9 out of 9 is an absolute majority plus. We go to item 12.3.3, the schedule of fees and charges, and councillor McMullen has advised that he has an interest in one of the items in that list. I guess that is it appropriate that we ask him to leave or the?
Well, he needs to leave.
Yep.
Financial
Yep.
interest. It
Right.
would be a council decision if they want to invite him back, but council may be able to deal with the whole item without council.
Okay, all right. Councillor McMullen, thank you. Councillors, Councillor McMullen has left the room. He has got one section in regards to the, Councillor McMullen has one section which is about the fees for the use of the gym at the Bay of Isles. We can do a simple process of dealing with this as a whole, with him out. I guess the only thing is, it's a difficult one because this is a report that you either adopt it or you don't. And so I would have thought that the best way, my advice to you is the best thing is we pass this recommendation now, if you're prepared to do that, and simply Councillor McMullen is quite clear from any other the issue is declared on being covered appropriately. Somebody prepared to move the officer's recommendation to endorse the schedule? Councillor Flanagan?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the officer's recommendation that council endorse the attached draft schedule of fees and charges to be included within the 2023-24 budget adoption.
Thank you, Councillor Flanagan. Is someone prepared to second the motion? Seconded by variously, but by Councillor Chambers. Councillor Flanagan, you can speak to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess no council easily makes a decision to increase fees and charges, especially in circumstances where there are significant cost of living pressures on the community. But with Australian CPI running at 7%, West Australian CPI at 6.3%, and more importantly, the roads and bridges for PEF running at 9.29%. And road construction and maintenance is a significant proportion of our budget as a council. And we're left with no option but to pass on the true cost of providing services. I think that 6% actually strikes a reasonable balance. And I have to congratulate the staff with the level of diligence that they've actually applied to the task of every single line item that relates to our fees and charges. And again, it's not a decision that council makes easily, but it's a decision that is necessary to maintain the services that we provide to the community.
Thank you, Councillor Flanagan. Is the Speaker against the motion? The seconder wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Chambers.
Thank you, Chair, but after that eloquent conversation, I doubt that there's anything that I can add other than to add my support to Councillor Flanagan's comments.
Thank you. Is the Speaker against the motion? Is there any amendment? I put the motion to the vote. Those in favour? Against? That is carried. 9 votes to nil. Call Councillor McMullen back into the chamber, please. 8 votes. He was my apology. 8. Yep. Councillor McMullen, the council voted on and endorsed the attached draft schedule of fees, complete as it was. Thank you very much. Councillors, we move on to the executive services and the Esperance events discussion paper, which is on page 183 of my agenda. Are there any questions to Mr. Burge on this item? Any questions? No questions? Is someone prepared to move the recommendation? All quiet. Councillor O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the officer's recommendation that council endorse the Esperance events discussion paper 2022 to 2027 and to consider a budget allocation during the development of the 2023-24 municipal budget to enable seed funding for new events and the attraction of conferences.
Thank you. It's moved by Councillor O'Donnell. Was it seconded? seconded by councillor Chambers. Councillor O'Donnell, you can speak to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to speak briefly to this motion to say that this was in partner with, this discussion paper was in partner with Golden Outback, and the seed allocation that is asked for here is just to, it's about a budget allocation just to have the capacity to attract visitors to our town. With the events and conferences, and of course we know that events adds vibrancy and attracts media attention and digital platforms, and brings economic boost to the town. So the Ahoy surveyed, apparently they surveyed 14 businesses, and all had the strong desire for events to attract visitors to the town. We all know that this is a beautiful, has beautiful natural assets. However, we do need to continue to look to the conferences and to attract them to the, especially on the shoulder ends of the high season. And I'll ask everybody to support this motion, please.
Thank you, councillor O'Donnell. Is there a speaker against? Councillor Chambers, you can speak in favour as the seconder of the motion.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, look, I'd support this motion purely because there's been some great work done on the tourism strategy in the previous couple of years, and this is another part of that strategy. And I think having the seed funding there, we've already seen in the past when there's some of these things come up at a very short notice. So I think it'll be a great idea to have the seed funding there, that we can take advantage of any of these opportunities that arise without having to come back to council to look for funding, and open up some opportunities either in the quieter times or even, you know, at any time for Esperance.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Is there an amendment to the motion? No speaker against, no amendment. I'll put to the vote those in favour. And we get 9 votes to nil on that one. So we go to item 12.4.2, the information bulletin, and that is on page 186 of my agenda. The recommendation on 185. Are there any questions you might have on this one to Mr. Burge? No questions? Okay. Somebody prepared to move the recommendation? Moved by councillor Horan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to read the officer's recommendation that council accepts 1, the information bulletin May 2023, 2, council priorities summary corporate performance April 2022, and 3, delegation discharge corporate resources. Thank you.
Thank you. It's moved.
Just, can we have an amendment to say April 2023?
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Provided council.
Are you happy with that then?
Yes, I'm happy,
Council priorities, corporate performance here, 23. Right. So, is there a speaker against the motion?
we need a seconder.
Did I? Yeah, okay. We've got a second to the motion. It jumped into the wrong place, I guess. Councillor Horan, you can speak to the motion.
Yeah, I find this bulletin very interesting for me. I like particularly looking at the permits, the building permits at issue. I like to see what's going on around town. People always ask me who's building this, who's doing that, and I can sort of look through that and get a rough idea of what's going on. So I find it an important bit of information for me personally anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. Speak against the motion. Councillor O'Donnell speaking seconder.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's 3 items here that councillors should accept, and there is a little bit of everything for anybody to read in here. So it's not just one interest. There's lots of different departments and what they're doing. So yes, it's a very good read. Thank you very much to all the staff.
Thank you. So is there a speaker against the motion? An amendment? No speakers as against, no amendments. I'll put to the vote. Those in favour? It's carried 9 votes to nil. So, motions of which notice has been given. Mr. CEO, do you have any motions? Okay, so members' questions with or without notice? Are there any members' questions with or without notice? No. Urgent business approved by decision. Is there no items coming forward on that? Okay. So we then go to item 17, which is this list of behind closed doors. Is someone prepared to move that we go behind closed doors? Moved by Councillor McMullen, seconded by Councillor O'Donnell. I'll put the motion to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against, that's carried 9-0. Thank you for being with us, Mr. Vivian and Ms. Smith. Thank you. I did see her move out. Yeah. Forward. back on live streaming. To those members of the community that have been joining us on live streaming, I would point out to you that we have dealt with some matters behind closed doors. There was 9 matters that were related to pre-qualifier supplier panels, 1 related to design and construct of residential units. Council has made decisions on those, accepting all of our pre-qualified panel and taking up a tender to build 4 units with the in Boyle Lane in relation to the design and construct unit tender. That completes our meeting for this evening. I thank all for being with us here in the chamber and online, and I'll declare the meeting closed. Thank you.